every single cell in your body is telling you to get out.
Yeah.
It's painful and it hurts and your adrenaline is shooting up.
A lot of people get stuck in the doing and it gets heavy. And that's the mask I was talking about.
Do you believe that ambition and fulfillment can coexist?
You have to do things to look professional or behave in a certain manner. It gets tiring over a while.
The real tragedy is when people are sacrificing themselves for something they hate. When you learn how to surrender and to find peace in chaos, that passes into everything you do. Hello and welcome to another episode of Transform Yourself podcast. Today I'm joined by Rajeev Daswani. Rajeev has worked in more than 20 years helping leaders, executive teams and multinational organizations, government bodies and fast-growing businesses, helping them navigate one of the biggest challenges we face in the world today, and that is how to achieve success without losing yourself in the process. As co-founder of the CEO Maker and founder of Happiness Coaching Center, Rajeev's work focuses on leadership development, cultural transformation, self-awareness, and conscious leadership, and helping people create alignment between who they are, how they lead, and how they live. Now, when most people hear the word leadership, they think about leading teams, businesses, and organizations. But the reality is, leadership starts much closer to home. It starts with leading yourself, because what I see day to day in many ambitious people, building businesses, growing businesses, providing for families and chasing bigger and bigger goals. Yet despite successful on the outside, many feel disconnected on the inside. They have lost the balance, they've lost clarity, they've lost perspective, and in some cases, they've lost themselves. Today, we're going to explore what conscious leadership really means and why so many people struggle despite achieving what they once wanted, and how we can create a life that feels successful, both professionally and personally. Rajiv, welcome to Transform Yourself.
Thank you so much. I love that introduction. It's a mouthful for you there.
It was a mouthful, yeah. We had to do it twice as well because we had a sound issue, right? It was like, first time I nailed it, second time I'm like, okay, let's try to nail it again. But thank you for coming in. It's been a while since we caught up in person, really, a couple of years, I guess.
Yeah.
Since we caught the space down. And I remember, when I came into the office, a workplace, and we went through the maps tell.
The map, yeah.
And, obviously I've been aware of different behavioral types, right? Yeah. And recognizing myself, we have the different colors. We have the red, the dominant. We have the yellow, the inspiring. We have the blue, the analytical.
That's right.
And we have the green, the stable, right? And in fact, I picked up an old book last night just because preparing for this conversation. The book was Surrounded by Idiots by Thomas Erickson. And when I first read that book, I was reading the pages that are all about the red personality or behavioral type. And I was like, this is me, like to the T. It's like almost comical.
Right.
So the first question I have for you is, can you tell us a little bit more about these types of behaviors and why it's important to recognize them and identify them in yourself and also in the people around you?
Brilliant. I love that question. And I'm smiling because I remember that journey on you on the map, right? When you saw all the different cities.
Yeah.
And you saw when you walked on the world of difference, that map was powerful because it doesn't have the colors anymore. And that was one of the first things that I thought was a game changer is once you remove that identity, the colors, and you look at the world of differences, the world of difference, it's a world of behaviors, right? It's the first step is to understand that we don't need to be boxed. Right? But knowing what behaviors you naturally are inclined to, what behaviors are true to who you are, what you put on as maybe the mask that we call, that the world sees us, makes us feel a bit safe, so we don't want to show our real self. So maybe that's the mask, right? What we call the active style. And then there's a behavior that we are more comfortable with. Those that know us, that's Christian. That's him when he's home or by himself, yeah? That's where he steps into. And then there's another version of you that's very different when you're stressed, right?
Of course, yeah.
that shows up, not always the one that we like. Sometimes we start reacting from that space. It's not a controlled response. But I take you one step back, because what's really powerful about the map, and when you get into this world of diving deep into an understanding of yourself, is really the word self-awareness. I loved your introduction for many reasons, but I'm going to take us back to one thing. The world of self-awareness, the world of conscious leadership, the first step is to just go within and understand yourself, right? Take a second to slow down and ask yourself within, who am I? How do I show up, right? And I like to use this visual for you. Think of it like a mirror, right? So imagine this, Christian. You see a mirror every day. Some people look at the perfect image of themselves, yeah? And they enforce that. But there's people who might be focusing on the flaws, right? So you know what you see. What happens when you see what you didn't see? What happens to that situation? Now, once you've seen the unseen, can you unsee it again?
No.
No. Now that you've seen it, now what are you going to do with that? That's also part of how we show up, right? So self-awareness, if you take it back and beyond any tool, you ask yourself, what is it that I see and that I know? And what is it that I don't know? And now that I know what I don't know, what changes for me? And why is that important? Why is it driving? So can you see the layering?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and for a lot of people, they probably don't want to know, right? Some people don't want to expose their vulnerabilities even to themselves. And, the common kind of statement you hear is like, he's different, or you shouldn't change. But we have to mold our personality to the environment we're in, right? So I'm expecting another child.
Yeah.
I have a son who's 4, as you know. We don't know what the gender is of the next child, but we will know soon. If it's a girl, I'm sure my parenting style will be completely different, more than likely. Or even if it's a boy, and it's a different personality to the child I have now. One thing I've done in my own space, at home in particular, is I only do associated things, I don't want to say tasks, things at that space. So for example, I only do work in the office.
Okay.
I only eat on the dinner table. I only chill out on the couch.
Right.
I go to bed and sleep. And if I'm lucky, I do a bit more, but it depends, But my point is, I create an environmental association. So when I go into that, I be that person.
Nice.
And I guess it's the same for the people you're around. The question I want to have for you is, was it a time? Obviously there was. So when was a time when you realized the importance of identifying these different behavioral or personality traits? And when was it that you realized how important it was to teach other people?
Wow. That's a powerful question, and I'm going to receive it first. The question is really powerful because what it highlights is, what was my experience with it, right? And just like everybody else, it was stumbling into the unknown, right? Catching myself in situations where I may have reacted as a leader, right? Or as a husband or as a father, right? Where I wish I would have responded. You know those moments when you look back and you go, why did I do that?
Yeah.
I could have done better. Or when the relationship, whatever relationship, right? When the outcome, what I was trying to work towards, it wasn't received. Maybe they didn't hear it the way that I thought I was saying it, right? Or maybe I wasn't very technical, very structured when I was speaking. I was very visionary, and maybe that didn't, connect. It was those moments in hindsight. And how many times have you looked at those situations? I'm sure you do as well. When you go back and you go, what could I have done differently? What went wrong, right? So introspection is a powerful driver, right? That's what happened to me. I as I was running my business, I was running an engineering company for over 20 years. And when you run your own business and continue to grow, it's a baby, just like our little ones. And you do everything, you roll up your sleeves and you do everything to nurture it, right? And you want everyone to love it the same way. You find the purpose in what you're doing, and you find the purpose in what your business is trying to do with the impact. And you hope initially that everyone has that same connection, right? But it's not always received the same way.
But they don't. And that's fine as well, I guess, because that's the point of what we're discussing, right? Is what I love about the book the most is the title, because when I've been reading this book in the past, because I'm the type of person, I can devour a book.
Yeah.
However, I just don't have the time now. So I tend to go through, it takes me a couple of months to go through a book. So I just carry it with me. I got a book in the car. Yeah. And if I find myself having 15 minutes, I just flick a couple of pages. So the title of this book, Surrounded by Idiots, okay, is quite an arrogant title. But when you understand the title, it's because you think everyone is like you. And you think everyone sees the world like you, but they're all completely different.
Right.
So in order for you to connect, and in order for you to lead, and in order for you to teach and influence and whatever you want to do, manipulate to some degree, if the outcome you want to manipulate is positive for the person, you need to understand what's going to move them the right way, right?
Absolutely.
So it's very important. So let's touch on them just for people who might not be aware, because I've spoken to people and people are really not aware. They're not aware that there are behavior types,
right?
So you can run them through if you want. You can go through the red. You know.
So I mean, it's off the study of DISC, right? And the DISC is the study of behaviors, right? And you have the 4 prime colors. Now, different DISC methodologies will use different words. The map cell one uses conscientious, right? Which is for the blue. They tend to be people who are very meticulous. They like to do things very properly. They don't like to be wrong. They like to be right. They see the world as right and wrong, and they like to do things properly. Yeah, and you can tell those people, right? They're the ones that look around. They study everything. They pay attention to details. Time is very important to them. Yeah, and for them, that is something which shows them how much you care. Is putting the effort, taking the effort to know the details, paying attention to the small things. Do you recognize people like that?
Yeah, and they'd fit into particular roles, wouldn't they? You know, I mean, like accountancy or any analytical type of processing work.
And that is where it becomes really interesting with MapStyle, right? Because, and I will bring this point back, but the beautiful thing is you're going to see yourself in each one of these. And that's the game changer.
Different type, yeah.
Absolutely. But we're going to talk about the different colors and come back to that, okay?
Please.
And then you look at the red style, the decisive style, which is a style which tends to be very, they're a style that likes to win. They're a style that likes to make decisions. They like to move fast. Right. They're more, they are task oriented, but they're more extroverted. Yeah. Whereas the blue style, the conscientious style, tends to be a little more introverted, but they're still very task oriented, right? If they had a choice to get stuff done and do it with details, take their time to do it properly, they would choose that. Whereas the decisive would go out there and get it done. Failing fast is not a problem, but as long as they can win, right? Learning from that and learning fast. It's an amazing dynamic space. Powerful thing is that at some points they can come across very task-oriented, right? The space below, the influential space, which is then the yellow space where people are more emotionally driven. They're the people who tend to be very inspiring, very visionary. They're people's people. They walk in the room, you know they're here, right? You call them the heart of the party. They're the ones that see things that people don't see, yeah? The details are not that important to them. But telling stories is, experiences, how they see the world through their eyes. You've seen all of them. And the powerful thing about people like that is when they show up, you can feel their presence. However, right, just like I said earlier, you will find yourself in a lot of these colors coming out the stable, the green that we spoke about. It's about togetherness. It's about unity. It's about every one of us, how we all, how do we go from the I to the we? It's about the we, right? I call them the mama and papas of the family, right? The glue. Right, the ones that will do everything for everybody else, and sometimes at their own expense, right? And again, very beautiful space, very nurturing. And then from the leadership space, it's the servant leadership. That journey of servant leadership comes beautifully from this space. But as you saw when you came to the center, when you saw map still, the colors were removed, and you just saw the behaviors. And I remember you walking on the map, and you say, "I'm here, I'm here, I'm here, I'm here," because you can embody different areas, and you will move.
You need to as well, right?
Absolutely. Now, there are certain areas in the map that would be, say, your active style that you may spend a lot more time in. This is where you'd have less pressure, less stress, because you're in your element. Now, the idea is, how can we adapt to all the different styles, right? We don't have to go to that space. We can just learn to adapt. And that's what you're talking about, creating that bond, that relationship, right? Because I see you, Christian. I feel you, I see you, but I also see you the way you want me to see you, as opposed to the way I expected you to be, to see you. You know the difference, right?
Kind of, yeah, I guess. We all, there's an old saying I said before, is like, I am not who I think I am. I said this on a previous podcast. I am who I think you think I am. So,
Wow. Yeah.
we are trying to mold our character based on, who we should show up. And again, who do I be for my wife? Who would I be for a prospect? Who would I be for a client? I guess there's a difference. One of the things I want to share, which is quite relevant, because when I came from the MAPS experience, I put together a big presentation from my team, because when I had the space, one of the main reasons to have the space was to bring everyone together. I really enjoyed creating an environment, And I was doing a presentation and teaching them. We was playing a lot of games, and we titled each other. So we called ourselves the Power Rangers. There was 4 of us who were consistent in the space. And I was the red. There was another one. We were all colors. And there was another guy, okay? And in the Power Rangers, there would be the colors. I think the 4 colors, or there was 4 of us. But there would be a black Power Ranger.
Okay.
And the black Power Ranger, you wouldn't know he was going to be. He's like a chameleon. He could be anyone at any time.
Right.
So one of the guys, we didn't know when he was going to show up and who he was going to be. We called him the black.
Right.
But I guess that why I'm saying that is because we all have to be the black Power Ranger to some degree, right? We have a dominant personality. Yeah. And sometimes, once you become more aware, some parts of your personality that are so strong, you realize maybe don't serve you, or maybe don't serve others. So you have to almost like detach in some way from that and start adopting personality traits that are more environmental friendly, for lack of a better word. What do you believe the biggest challenge busy professionals are facing that nobody is talking about right now in the workspace, knowing the personality traits you do, when you go in and you help people? What are some of the biggest challenges they face here, but nobody is discussing?
It's a powerful question. And I think I want to break that question down a bit, because of course, different situations have different challenges. Yeah. But the biggest one, I think, is the unintentional knowing that they don't know, number one. And, the everyday things that we take for granted that we believe is because of that other person, when in reality it could be because we don't know how to adapt ourselves as leaders. So for example, things like adapting our decision making, being agile, communication, building trust. Think about that one. Trust it sounds very easy, but to build trust with people, you have to build a relationship, you have to connect. And connection is, I always say this, trust is one step away on that map. It's just you stepping in the direction of the other person that they can see you, receive you, and then allow them to move towards you as well. It's a dance, isn't it? So one of the biggest challenges in the world that we live in, because we're competing with so many things at the same time. Think about the world with technology and phones and information coming at super fast speed. It's the human skills that are the big challenge now. It's not that we've taken for granted the pace of the world. Things are coming very fast at us. And the more we can take a step back and become more self-aware, understand ourselves, understand how we show up, what's driving us, how we can adapt ourselves, we can start to tackle and get all the outcomes that we need. We'll tackle the challenges and come up with outcomes.
Yes, great. And what I'm thinking about when you say this as well, and I reflected on my question also, is, a lot of people, they are working hard in Dubai. If they're trying to climb the ladder, they are striving, or at least they're trying to, right? They put a lot of hours in. They might be balancing multiple things, and they are probably internal need to express how they really want to show up in the world. It's probably not professional for one, right? So how do you manage that part of it? Where, like, for example, you turn up today, I don't know what's been going on in your day, but you turn up professional.
Yeah.
And you're in a good state and you're ready to have a conversation, and it's very, beneficial and sure to be very appreciated. Do you think it's learning how to switch these things on? And when to when do you be yourself then?
Well, I love that question. I'll tell you why I love it. You've heard of being and doing.
Yeah. Like being present, I guess.
Being present and then doing things, right? A lot of people get stuck in the doing and it gets heavy. And that's the mask I was talking about, where it gets heavy. You have to do things to look professional or behave in a certain manner. It gets tiring over a while. And like you said, at that point in time, it's, how do I let go of this mask? I can't take it anymore. And then you start having a situation in your personal life or professional life. It starts to reflect that. When you start to work on the being aspect, and this is where we can take it from, it sounds very woo-woo, to actually really bringing it into the tangible. It's you take a journey into self-awareness. You start to realize what is it to be and what brings that awareness of who I am. It's not just your behaviors, it's your values, your purpose. It allows you to build resilience. It gives you a reason to fight. You get in front of people or you share your message because you know it means something, not only to the people receiving it, but also to you, right? So ultimately, the answer is we have to start to uncover ourselves more through self-awareness as leaders, as individuals, everyday life, so we can start to be more naturally. So I ask you, Christian, imagine someone who knows their behavior styles, but they also know their values. Two people that stand the same area with different values will see the world differently, will even behave. They may have similar behaviors, but they apply them different based on their values, right? Take it one step even deeper. What's driving them? What's their purpose? Wow, even more powerful. What is driving them, right? Once you know these things, then you ask yourself, how useful is that mask? Is that mask serving me or not? And the beautiful thing about this is asking yourself and not telling yourself, is allowing yourself to uncover it gently.
Yeah.
Right? Aren't we tired of a world that tells us what to do, as opposed to allowing us to find what the right answer is for ourselves? That's why I love coaching.
Yeah, because a lot of people wouldn't have they would think they wouldn't have the time to look. So coaching, obviously people like us love it, but people need or can benefit a lot from it because all this thinking they might not do to uncover who they are. I guess for me, I think I always see the good in people, and I think part of that is because I believe that I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm good, and I have lots of flaws. And I recognize sometimes my behavior, the way I respond, it's not my intention. Maybe at the time, but it's driven by a response, a reaction.
A reaction. Yeah.
And I identify it. So I can also put myself in other people's perspective a lot. That doesn't discard what somebody might do, but I can understand why somebody might respond in that way. And almost I can almost feel empathy for it.
I was going to say, it's like empathy showing up.
Exactly, because I'm like, okay, and part of the problem with that, which I'm actually molding that, is sometimes that expression of empathy might not be received in a world that might not see the good in everyone.
Sure.
So I might take not a side, but a perspective with somebody you might express about. And then you might think that I'm taking sides, but I'm not. I'm just trying to understand perspectives, you know. So it's really important. I've certainly learned a lot. And you must see it over and over where people are climbing the ladder and they start to become a version of themselves that they feel like they should be. And then they lose themselves, right?
Beautifully said.
You know, and they probably, like, especially I guess the higher you climb is like when you have an opportunity to be your authentic self, right? So is it a process of it? Let me ask you a question. You're in great shape, by the way. You've got great energy. You're very successful. I've known you for a while, and I'm sure life has been challenging like it has for everyone. What does Rajiv's day look like from when you wake up? How do you start, and how does that go into?
You know, it's powerful, right? Because how you look on the outside reflects how you feel on the inside as well, right? So I mean, looking at you know, we take care of ourselves, but it's also the inner work, right? For me, for many years now, the inner work has been very important. Yeah. So it looks different for different people, right? I would never tell someone, do it this way, do it that way. I just follow a few things that makes me feel connected, right? So breath work, meditation's always been something that's important to me. I do it my way, right? like you, I love sports. I like, we had the conversation outside. I could never sit still either, right? So it was always working out. The gym is a big thing, but also getting on a treadmill and running, playing sports a lot more when I was younger, became less and less. But throwing that in early in my day is really important for me. So when I wake up, getting my breath in, making sure that I can just quickly reflect on all the positive things that I need to do internally. I don't have to vocalize them, but just start thinking about it. I am very optimistic as a human being. I love the world like you do. And when you have that in you, you always look at, how can I make impact every morning? What can I do today? How can I make today a special day for myself and everybody else, right? I start with that mindset. Yeah. I will get on the treadmill and I'll just zone out. I will make sure that, I can connect with my inner self first. That's non-negotiable for me. Before any meeting, before any call, that's going to happen. Does that mean that I get out of bed a lot earlier? Yeah. Does it mean that I have to sleep very early? Not necessarily. No matter what time I sleep, I will wake up at a certain time. And I think it
Your
becomes
punishment if you don't go to bed early enough, you'll be...
And I go with a lot. I really firmly believe that when people start to connect with themselves, they just know, right? And okay, I have enough sleep. I'm okay with it, right? And that's the beautiful thing. And I think that's the power here. It's not taking away the power, but bringing it back in and saying we have the control and we can make choices. Here's the key word: conscious choices. Can we make them consciously? It's a really beautiful feeling when you do, right? So as I tap into that morning, for me, when you ask me what is that moment, that's it for me. That moment in the morning keeps me going the whole day. Yeah. You also saw me walking in with a bottle of water with turmeric, and I'll drink water a lot throughout the day. Yeah. And for me, based on where I stand on the map and based on my purpose and my values and my inner work, being able to show up as me is non-negotiable. Right? It's not that I have a choice. I want to wear that mask. Not at all. I want to show up as who I am. The secret was uncovering it. And I continue to uncover it, Christian. That's the beautiful thing about life. It teaches you. You're going to fall off. You're going to stand up again, and you're going to build your resilience, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I have a question for you. And I have another question that I want to circle back to. First question is, you talk about consciousness a lot, right? And conscious leadership. So what is that exactly?
I love it. There are so many different versions of that answer, right? For me, I firmly believe that conscious leadership is about showing up to work with love. Someone who shows up, as themselves at work and leads consciously in awareness. Yeah. Tapping into that space. Now, I know I used a word that people get very confused about. Love, work, that doesn't seem to fit. But it does.
Because, sure, right,
because, Christian, we are human first. One of my biggest missions through everything that I do, I've worn the entrepreneur hat. I have sat as a leader, as a CEO of an organization. I know how it is to go through the day-to-day decision-making, tasks, the good, the bad. But the most important thing that I learned from that journey was how important the human connection is. Showing up human is non-negotiable. And when you allow yourself to do that, you also give permission to everybody around to do the same thing. And there's something magical about that. So someone asked me once, they said, oh, okay, so if we all practice, can we all be conscious leaders? I said, yes. Oh, so we'd all be the same? No, because everyone's going to show up differently in their own little magical way. Perfectly imperfect is still perfect.
Yeah. Well, that's what makes a perfect team, doesn't it? Is the differences come together, So one of the things that came to mind when you said that is, I've put my body through a lot of pain, right? And it's almost the relationship between pain and pleasure has been so intertwined, because you can change the state and perspective of how you feel just by thinking, what is it for? So I remember I would be doing like 2 hours of Stairmaster a day, every morning, every night. And there was a girl who kept walking into the gym, and she saw me on the Stairmaster. And one day she said to me, oh, you love that, don't you? And she was being genuine because I was on it. And I looked at her, I was like, well, it's tough, but I love the result it's given me. And I can enjoy the pain of the moment because I'm living a pleasurable experience. And I think part of that loving your work, if you feel like you're doing something, because there are tangible and tedious things to do that most people don't like, but it's the perspective of why you're doing what you're doing. If you feel like you're fulfilling your purpose, then, you know, I guess you can do it with, well, I do certainly with joy. There are some things, like I said, that are tedious, that at some point I will probably delegate them to hopefully somebody who really enjoys it.
Absolutely.
You know, like when you're interviewing people, some people like tedious tasks. So I've had a conversation with taxi drivers, and I love it when they like, because I say to them, you know, how long you've been doing this, and they tell me the story, and I say, and some people they light up. Like, what's the best thing about your job? Like, I get to travel and meet loads of people and have conversation. Like, well, that sounds like, on paper, that sounds like the best job in the world. And he thinks it is, and it is to him.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Because the real tragedy is when people are sacrificing themselves for something they hate, because it's hatred within you, right? And that's not good. And that brings me to my next question, really. Do you believe that ambition, and I know you do, but I'm going to ask you anyway.
Right.
Do you believe that ambition and fulfillment can coexist? Or does ambition often become a endless pursuit to the never ending for people who are, or like yourself, you have no obligation. What are you doing next? You know, it's never ending, right? So can it coexist?
You got the answer, right? And the answer is in the question. Yes, it can. What are we measuring against, Christian? Right? So the ambition, if it's driven by your purpose, you know why you're doing it, and it connects with why you're here, and you want to go out there and make a difference. You love it. You feel fulfilled. And then the question is, how do you measure that? And what is that level of measure look like? So for example, if I do what I do and I can make one person happy because they can connect with who they are, right? Or we do what we do and we make 1,000 people happy. The impact is, it's beautiful to make 1,000 people happy, but it doesn't minimize the happiness that one person felt, right? So ambition and fulfillment can coexist, and it builds, doesn't it? It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. You know, with the CEO Maker, for example, Laura and I, my partner Laura and I founded this program where we develop leadership teams, right? So they come together, and different strengths coming together, and different people working together. And you can see a lot of times in organizations as well. I'm going to bring to organizations for a second, how two people driving to their own individual purpose can still work in cohesion to one big purpose, both creating personal impact and professional impact, both fulfilling their own ambitions and fulfilling for themselves and for the organization. And that's powerful, right? Something that you said that was really a game changer. I had a very similar experience. I walked into an hotel, and I went to the restroom, and there was this gentleman that was, you know, when they open the door and the welcome, and he was really, really bigger than life. You know, he was smiling and welcoming, and you know, he made me feel so welcomed. This is just a restroom, right? But he went out of his way, you know, to crack a joke, give me a towel. He was so loving, Christian. I stopped and started talking to him, and I had the same experience you did, where he was bigger than life. He made that so powerful, that experience. He was literally the ambassador of that brand for me. And he left me smiling, going, what an amazing person.
Yeah.
He wasn't doing it because he was told to do it. He did it because that was who he was, and he felt purpose.
Exactly.
And I asked him a very similar question you asked. I said, you know, you're doing this, but you're so good with people. I mean, it looked like you really love it. He goes, I love it. I get to meet people from all over the world, and I get to have conversations with people like you. It was so humbling. Authentic and humbling at the same time, because it taught me that, like I said earlier, the CEO Maker is about finding the CEO in each and every one of us. You can be a conscious leader no matter where you are, when you're living authentically through who you are and how you're expressing it. right? So yes, ambition and fulfillment can go together, and it's powerful to see in action, right?
Yes, great. I mean, and we go back to, you know, this guy in the toilet. Of course, he's not being taught to it, and probably he's getting pulled aside and saying, "Hey, listen, you need to stop talking to people when they're on the toilet." Like, but he's bringing so much joy. And I had a very similar experience when I was in Zanzibar, and I was meeting the locals, and they had very little, but they were so happy, and it made me realize, like, what do we actually need? Like, in fact, we choose the state of being, you know, and like you said, I do believe there's a conscious effort that we need to put in to remind ourselves of the things we have. One thing I do every day, I do my morning prayer, and I'm grateful. And like I said to you outside off camera, I've been able to program my mind in a way that I'm always optimistic.
Yeah.
And that wasn't always the case, you know, because you become a product of your environment, right?
Absolutely.
Somebody gave me a great analogy many years ago, and they said, if you have 2 glasses of water right now, and you take a carrot and you split it in half, and you put each half of the carrot in the glass of water, and then you put loads of salt in the one and loads of sugar, 6 months you have a pickle, 6 months you have jam. So the same product becomes different based on the environment, right? So you got to create that environment within yourself, right? Now, obviously, many listeners that listen to this, and certainly many people that I speak to, they struggle with the balance. You know, they often sacrifice themselves at the pursuit of success, and often enough, they would be. It's always short term in their mind. It's just until I get the promotion, or just until I get whatever. So, what is your relationship with sacrifice, of course, and at the cost of self, just to be successful?
Oh, that's a powerful one, because I think a lot of people, all of us at some point in our lives, have to weigh this, right? And you ask yourself, when does it feel like sacrifice, right? So, for example, if you're in a job or in a career that, you know, maybe you don't enjoy, maybe you don't get that connection to, then maybe it looks more like a sacrifice, right? However, if it's someone who loves what they're doing, they may be okay with the 18 hours, right? To somebody else, it might be like, oh my God. But to you, it's just you're flowing. You're in that state where you're loving what you're doing, right? So it's really, again, it goes back to evaluating, you know, what's driving it? If what is driving my actions, my day-to-day, is something that's driven by something powerful for me, like my purpose, and that's what people will ask me. They go, you know, well, purpose seems like so flaky. How do you? Well, it's only flaky when you make it that. But if you are able to just go deeper and you know, figure things out. People don't like to do the work, right? A lot of times we're like, oh, can you just give me the answer? No, this is about introspection. It's about going out to the process and uncovering. Because once you do and you can figure out what's really driving, why am I doing this? Changes the perspective. And it goes back to your question of perspective, isn't it? What's suffering? What could be suffering to someone could be something completely exciting for somebody else. It could be a driving towards a passion. Like I remember an athlete, and you're an athlete. I remember an athlete I read about who spent 18, 20 hours. They would just keep on going, just, you know, practice or taking shots, right? And somebody would be like, well, that's too much. You need to rest your body. But to them, it was a perfection. They were in a state of flow. They were going, you know, and it showed in their game, right? So I guess the answer is, what are you giving up in order to get what you think you want to get? And is getting there the destination, or is the impact something bigger?
Yeah, it's a great answer. And again, my mind just lights up when you're speaking. I think about a lot of things, and a lot of things that have been very relevant in my life. And tools that I use, I was having a conversation with one of my clients yesterday about the ice bath.
Right.
And he was saying, you know, is the ice bath good for recovery? Well, first of all, he asked me, is the ice bath good? And I said, good for what?
Right.
And he said, well, good for recovery. I said, yeah, it can help decrease inflammation, etc. I said, but one of the best things that served me from doing the ice bath is when you go in the ice, every single cell in your body is telling you to get out.
Yeah.
It's painful and it hurts and your adrenaline is shooting up and the anxiety can go high. But when you learn how to surrender and to find peace in chaos, that passes into everything you do. You can be sitting calm in the middle of a storm. And I think that's certainly my goal, is how to stay content in life when life throws. And again, that would be authentic. First of all, let's understand what it feels like to feel content and let's try to harness it.
Mm-hmm.
So, these are some of the acts that I've certainly used. And what I've realized is it's all perspective.
Yeah.
Like I could be going through a challenge with a smile or with a angry face.
Absolutely.
So I've done a lot of times. I go, okay, what would my perfect day look like? And I sit and I meditate and I think, okay, well, and then I realize my day is very similar to that.
Mm-hmm.
And if you ask somebody, like, what would you like to do? And they say, well, I would like to connect with more people and whatever it is. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
in your current workspace, can you do that? Could you find opportunities? Because the opportunity is all in front of us. I think
Absolutely.
one thing is missing a lot, and you can piggyback on this because you've touched on it many times, is the connection. I think nowadays with everything being digital, hence why, these conversations are great because we have them less often.
It's true.
Where people are having calls or Zooms and meetings and it's that disconnection from personal interaction. If you got people, I met some and say, yeah, I'll send you a message. I'm like, I'm in front of you.
Right. Just put the phone down.
Tell me. You know what I mean? Where you see? Show me. Right. So how important do you think that human connection is because consciousness, you can say what you believe. I believe it's a connection of us all.
Correct.
We're all part of a consciousness. It doesn't live here.
Yeah.
It exists and we're part of that experience. How important is the human connection, physical connection, to actually conscious awareness itself?
It's huge. In fact, I can't remember the exact study, but there was a study done and they said human connection actually helps us, live better lives, longer lives. Various different studies have been done. Human connection is huge and we cannot minimize it. In the world of technology where, yes, people get very taken by it and isolate themselves a lot of times in front of the computers, or some by force, some not, right? But you can find that connection. And that's the game changer, is looking for those moments of connection throughout your day, right? Because we as a species are meant to connect, right? So it saddens me sometimes when I see those examples, or someone's like, send me a message. You're like, why don't you just open up and speak, right? But again, going back to the map, there's people who do things based on where they stand. They may need more structure. They may need time to think things through. So again, setting expectations to just understand that people are built differently and they may see things differently. But how they connect will also show up based on how they see the world, right? It doesn't change connection. It allows us to just receive it differently based on where they stand as well. So it's just a game, isn't it, Christian? It's just about dancing.
Dance, yeah.
It's a dance.
So obviously you know all this information, and for you, I would assume that when you meet somebody, without being judgmental, you're probably making a fair assessment of them, or at least who they presenting themselves to be. Would that be fair to say?
I think subconsciously.
Because then I guess you're making a decision on, like, I want to be my authentic self, but who do I need to be?
Right.
Who's in front?
It's a great thing, right? So, I think as humans, subconsciously, we may all already kind of do that without realizing, right? It doesn't always come into our attention that we might be doing it. That's the difference here, is when we can start to do it with a little more awareness based on how we are reading the room. And that's why it's so important to learn to read the room, right? So we understand, well, here's a person who's a people's person who is showing and expressing emotion. They're comfortable with emotion. They'll receive emotion well, right? At this moment in time, being emotional is important. Or someone who's very, technical. They want details and facts, honoring the fact that they need those facts. You may not like to give them facts, or that's not comfortable for you, but understanding that it's comfortable for them, right? So it's the beautiful thing about this journey is how can we make it as easy for us to create that connection? And that's where it becomes so powerful, because like we said, it's like for us, it's a recharge. Humans, connection can be a recharge. Now, saying that, people who could be standing in a certain part of the map that are a little more introverted, for them, sometimes being by themselves also a recharge, right? So knowing that and understanding that just because someone needs space away from us doesn't mean that they don't like to connect. Maybe they connect differently. And again, it's just learning that awareness. Does that kind of answer where you...
Yeah, it does. It's all about awareness, isn't it? Because, I believe when you seek self-mastery, which I'm not arrogant enough to say I've fulfilled that, but I'm definitely on a path to become better. And I know that starts within me and it finishes within me.
Yeah.
The more I can learn thyself, the more I can learn the world, right? So the more I identify things with myself, I start to see them in other people. And I start to recognize impulses of adrenaline or anxiety or depression or fear or whatever emotion is driving that moment, because I recognize it myself, right?
Yeah.
So it's so important to learn these traits and then to accept that everyone is different and to reflect. And I guess that's what would make the workplace a little bit more pleasurable. If you could view it like children, because we're all children, and I wouldn't look at a child and think, he's an horrible child. I would think, that's him, and maybe his environment is shaping him to some degree. So it's very important for people who know this information, but are still a bit resistant. Where would you send them? Would you bring them into the map? Would you send them some sort of book? Or how would you...
What we do, what's really powerful, is we meet them where they're at, right? We have to understand why first. What is the reason we have reached where we are right now? What are we looking for? What's stopping us from getting to the next marker, right? When those questions are asked, and when you allow someone else to decide that, automatically it's going to come and reflect on the areas that are not there. So in other words, without a foundation, you can't build a building. Yeah. So someone might be very focused on the outcome and the numbers and getting the results. But when you break it all down, there's symptoms that are probably causing the outcome. If you're not hitting the numbers or you're having an issue with trust in the organization, it's not because there's nothing magical. We just have to uncover and go back to the beginning and say, okay, well, let's quickly understand who we are. Let's understand what we don't see. What do we not see? Now that you see, now what you're going to do about it? Now that I know Christian receives people this way, this is the way he sees the world, this is how he responds in stress, what am I going to do to build a connection? Am I going to build with Christian so that he's comfortable? So I know this is going to get him stressed. Wait, I'll do it this way. I'm not giving him the report that way. I'm giving the report to him this way because he needs it this way, right? It's going to make it easier for him. This is how we start to build the bridges. And if organizations start figuring this out, and then you take it out to a person, the person starts working this way, whether your goal is to go out there and lose 20 or 50 kilos, just knowing this is the way I am, right, allows you to start to plan and put things in place that work better. You know this, and it's so powerful. So I begin with people and organizations and individuals based on where they're at. We meet them where they're at first and just say, okay, what's that mirror look like? It's not about telling them what's missing. It's really going, I don't know what's missing. It's up to you to see the mirror and tell me what you see. Now that you've seen this and we present a few more mirrors for you, what's coming for you? And where would you like to be? And why is it important?
Yeah.
Simple questions, really.
Yeah, it's great. And you mentioned stress many times there. And I work with, busy professionals. I'm one of them myself, really. And I know
Absolutely.
stress it can be a silent killer, really, although it's not silent for the person. What is your the most practical tool that you personally use, or you would suggest somebody to use or do, that is, because once you're in that anxious state, right, it's really difficult, I found anyway, to suggest, because you almost need to find a way in there, don't you? Because people are like, they're alert, right? The sympathetic state is up, the adrenaline's going, and some people are chronically stressed, right? So what is a practical tool that either you use or you suggest to kind of help people transition out to that state?
It's a very personal journey. I always go back to my breath, Christian. It's been huge for me. And every time I speak to someone and I share notes or connect with their notes, check theirs, and that's kind of what I find. That breath is a really big one for many of us. You know, I read a post the other day and it was really, really powerful. It was someone had posted about that moment when you're about to react. There's like a 60-second, a 90-second window. If you could just stop right there, take a breath, just stop before you respond, right? But it takes awareness again, right? To know you're going there.
Yeah.
Still a dance. Yeah. So your breath is that. If you can tap into that breath space. Now there's different types of breathing, you know, and find that breath work for yourself, whether it's deep breaths, whether it's, you know, holding your breath for a bit, you know, there's different techniques to this. The resources are out there. We live in a world where information's available. Experts are everywhere, right? Find what works for you. You know, for someone, it's take a breath and go out for a walk. For someone else, it's take a breath and go and connect with somebody else. Yeah. For somebody else, it might just be go and find more information. Take a breath and just go get more details before you respond. And you'll be surprised. But for some people, it might be just take the action. I don't mind failing. Just quickly do it. Whatever it takes for you to just get over that hump at that moment in time and catch yourself in the moment. That I've noticed has been a big one. A big learning for me is catching yourself in the moment of stress. What are the triggers for you? Yeah. So how does your body react in stress? Where do you feel it? Christian, where do you feel stress when it starts to show up first? Think about it.
It comes from my gut. If I feel like an injection of, I guess that's anxiety, first trigger.
Right. So you can feel it. You know when it's coming, right?
Yeah, well, it's just like an injection.
Right.
But before I respond to the world, I feel it, for sure.
That's it. And are you in awareness of that feeling and where you're feeling it? And can you identify that usually when that's about to happen, there's going to either be a reaction or a response?
Yeah, so I feel an injection come from you and it goes all up to my face.
Right.
And one of the ways that I've, again, these tactical tools you've mentioned to find your own, you can look at the environment, people can look at the environment as a opportunity. So let's say my goal is to be content. I might be in a stressful environment, but I can practice these tools and actually see if they work or not. So I used to have a call frequently with somebody that he carried a lot of stress and I felt a lot of stress from the conversations with him.
Absolutely.
So I would practice tools beforehand.
Okay.
And I would practice like a breath work or some sort of visualized meditation to protect my energy and so forth, stay content. And then during that call, I would be authentic and so forth, but I could reflect afterwards, okay, how stable was I? How many shifts did I feel? So, and these are very simple, but powerful tools. And it goes back years, right? This has been taught, but people know the answers, but they struggle to apply. I mean, 6 seconds, 6 breaths, I think can reduce stress perhaps to 60%. And that was 666, whatever you want to call it, but it's true.
Absolutely.
You can bring this in whenever you need it, or you can bring it as a daily practice. So,
and then there's also that moment when you feel stressed, but you're not at that peak. And it builds up over time, right? And this is the habitual stress that happens. Find those moments. Find those moments of, you know, I call it recharge. Just find those moments that allow you to do something. Go shoot some hoops. Do whatever it takes just to quickly. For us, we like sports a lot, so it's always about moving our body. For somebody else, it might be something else. But just find those moments in your day, your week, where you can actually just disconnect from the stimuli that's causing stress for a bit, and allow yourself just to park it, and just give yourself the permission, right? So it's at the moment that stress happens, breath is powerful, but then also find your little, you know, and I love saying this, is find your secret, find your little recipe. Everybody has a different one. And it doesn't have to, I don't have to do what you do, but find what's unique to you that makes you just go, this recharged me. I feel good now. Now I can go back to that environment. I can kick butt because I'm feeling good, right?
Yeah.
Powerful.
Well, thank you for everything, Rajiv. It's been a pleasure. It's been really good conversation. I'm sure we'll have many more. Thank you also for listening. I'm just assuming many people will benefit from this conversation. If you do, please like, please share, please subscribe. Sharing is really caring. So if you benefit, I'm sure that somebody else will be as well. And I know I certainly have benefited. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
I'll see you in the next one.
Right. Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks.